Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going to explore how a single, everyday machine can actually tell the story of a nation's entire economic evolution. We're talking about how an entire country transitioned from relying on protected, highly utilitarian industrial products all the way into a globally connected, performance-oriented consumer culture. And we're going to do it all through the lens of one very specific, absolutely fascinating vehicle. If you were around back then, you absolutely know this sound. For decades, the metallic, almost rhythmic idling of this two-stroke engine meant milk deliveries were arriving, government errands were being run, and eventually it became the soundtrack to teenage rebellion. That classic ring-a-ding sound, along with that familiar puff of blue-gray smoke, literally defined the roads of India for an entire generation. But here's the crazy part. Today, the motorcycle that helped define those very roads has disappeared so completely that many younger riders know its name only as a rumor. So, it really begs the question, what does it actually mean for a motorcycle to be Indian? Well, we're going to unravel this mystery by looking at the Rajdoot. This is a motorcycle that literally helped build the modern Indian market only to vanish completely. By tracing its life cycle, we get a perfect, high-contrast snapshot of how the very definition of modern India changed over half a century.
Let's kick things off with part 1, a transnational origin story.
Now, you might assume this iconic Indian bike was organically born in India. Actually, scratch that. Tracing its engineering DNA, we see it was a licensed derivative with a deeply transnational family tree. It all started in post-war Germany in the 1940s with the heavily copied DKW RT125 design. That design directly influenced the Polish SHL M11, which was manufactured throughout the 1950s. Finally, jumping to 1962, a production license was transferred to the Escorts Engineering Group over in Faridabad, India. So, the company behind this Escorts Limited used a clever economic strategy known as import substitution. Think of it as a massive shortcut to build up a manufacturing base, completely bypassing the slow, incredibly costly process of developing a new engine from scratch. They obtained the foreign tech, slowly localized production by swapping out imported components for locally sourced ones, and built a robust domestic base. This machine wasn't just a bike, it became physical evidence of how a newly independent India was industrializing.
Which brings us to section 2, the milkman's workhorse.
The Rajdoot 175 succeeded perfectly because it was tailored exactly to the rugged realities of the time. It handled incredibly rough roads effortlessly. It boasted a massive load-carrying capacity. And crucially, it had a mechanically simple design. This made it totally repair-oriented. I mean, a local village mechanic could rebuild the engine without needing any highly specialized tools. In a protected market where consumers had very limited choices, it was exactly what small traders, farmers, and delivery workers needed to survive. It was an economic enabler.
People definitely weren't buying this as some sort of trendy lifestyle choice or an expression of their personality. As we can see, it scored a full 100% on pure utility, prioritizing heavy-duty durability over modern technology or aspiration. People lovingly called it the milkman's motorcycle because, first and foremost, it was a tool meant for hard work.
Moving right along to section 3, Bollywood and the Bobby bike.
Okay, this is where the story takes a wild turn. In 1973, the core physical product stayed exactly the same, but its cultural meaning, it shifted completely. Escorts took their standard 175cc engine and crammed it into this comically miniature frame called the GTS 175. Legend actually has it they just used leftover utilitarian parts to build it. But when this tiny, odd-looking bike appeared in the smash hit 1973 Hindi film Bobby, everything changed overnight. Cinema transformed a dull industrial milk-run product into a massive pop culture icon. Suddenly, it was associated with youth, romance, and rebellion. It was an incredibly early, super successful version of influencer marketing.
Next up is section 4, the Yamaha performance mismatch.
Fast forward to the 1980s, and the brand is facing a massive identity crisis. Escorts partnered with Yamaha to introduce the high-speed Rajdoot 350. So suddenly, you walk into a showroom, and you've got this traditional, heavy, low-revving workhorse sitting right next to light, performance-oriented, modern Japanese styling. The brand was completely fracturing. You had the durable worker, the cinematic youth icon, and now this expensive performance machine, all awkwardly operating under one stretched umbrella.
The Rajdoot 350 was basically a rocket ship for its time. A twin-cylinder, 6-speed monster that was the fastest thing most Indians had ever seen. but it arrived way before the surrounding ecosystem was actually ready for it. It guzzled fuel, the purchase price was sky high, and local mechanics just weren't trained to fix it. Even worse, to save on costs, the original Yamaha platform's front disc brake was dangerously swapped out for a cheaper drum brake. Ultimately, the bike's sheer performance completely outpaced the local road infrastructure, the mechanics' skills, and the everyday rider's wallets. This created a fascinating, somewhat tragic paradox. Through their joint venture in 1985, they introduced the RX-100. It became an absolute smash hit, but it was marketed under the Yamaha name, not Rajdoot. So inside the exact same industrial partnership, you had one name that was clearly aging into rugged utility, while the other was becoming the bright, aspirational future. The massive success of the RX-100 subtly signaled to everyone that the legacy Rajdoot brand was now a thing of the past.
And that brings us to Section 5, the system of decline.
You know, it's rarely just one single fatal mistake that kills a legacy brand. For the Rajdoot, it was a whole system of mutually reinforcing economic pressures. As Japanese collaborations expanded across the country and petrol prices started to climb, the two-stroke engine's heavy fuel consumption turned into a massive household liability. New lightweight four-stroke competitors like the Hero Honda CD100 came in and established fuel efficiency as the absolute ultimate purchasing metric. For an everyday commuter, fuel economy wasn't just some minor technical spec on a brochure, it dictated their weekly household budget. Plus, the Indian consumer was just growing up. They started expecting a lot more refinement. They wanted easier starting mechanisms, a lighter clutch, modern 12-volt electrical systems, less of that signature exhaust smoke, and reliable dealer support. So the Rajdoot's defining strengths, its sheer mass and old-fashioned ruggedness, were suddenly being reinterpreted by a modernizing public as dated, clunky weaknesses.
When you lay the decline out on a timeline, the writing was really on the wall. Following that 1985 joint venture, Yamaha eventually just took full control of the Indian operation in 2001. And the final nail in the coffin? Tighter government emissions regulations, the BS standards. They hit that old two-stroke engine like a ton of bricks. It was no longer legally or commercially viable, which led to the phase-out of the legacy 175 platform around 2005 and Escorts making a strategic exit from the motorcycle business entirely.
Finally, we reach Section 6, Return as Nostalgia.
The entire lifespan of this industrial object reveals a complete total category shift. The Rajdoot started its life as pure transportation. Then it shifted into cinematic aspiration. Eventually, it fell into harsh obsolescence. And now, it is returned as memory. In the hands of modern-day restorers and passionate collectors, these totally obsolete two-strokes have become scarce, highly cherished mechanical connections to family history.
I love this quote because it hits the nail right on the head. Rajdoot helped create the modern Indian motorcycle market and was eventually displaced by it. It perfectly captures the grand paradox of our explainer today. The Rajdoot succeeded because it was custom-built for the rough, limited-choice environment of 1960s India, but ironically, through their own business partnerships, they helped usher in the era of modern Japanese engineering that ultimately made their own traditional workhorse obsolete. It was the foundational stepping stone that the nation eventually, and inevitably, outgrew.
So I want to leave you with a question to chew on. Think about the mundane, everyday tools we rely on right now. You know, the things we don't even look twice at because they're just built to do a job. How might those very objects completely change their cultural meaning in the decades to come? Will today's purely functional technology be tomorrow's priceless, nostalgic collector's item? It really makes you look at the world around you just a little bit differently, doesn't it?